Let's talk Isaiah Thomas. The scrappy guard taken with the 60th pick of the 2011 draft has had a roller coaster of a career. Perhaps one of the most intriguing cases in the NBA's recent history, Thomas has endured bouts of what I like to call unstable security within the association. In the most significant phase of his career, Isaiah burst onto the superstar scene as he averaged 23.4 points per game under coaching wizard Brad Stevens as the Celtics got as far as the Eastern Conference Finals as recently as last year. And then he was traded. It's undeniable IT is a talented player as he brings a knack for scoring and leadership to the table, but I feel there's more to him than is addressed by the common media. Consistent throughout popular basketball mediums is the fact that Isaiah is such a liability on defense because of his height. Standing at a way below league average height of 5'9", his ability to contest shots is non-existent in a league where the average height is 6'7". Also, when you consider the simplistic nature of some NBA offenses who seek to attack the weakest link in the high pick and roll, Isaiah is the worst possible defensive player in the league as he does not have the strides, strength, or agility to stay in front of these ball handlers. What we hear is a whole lot of what he can't do on defense, but he seems to get approval everywhere else. I decided to look deeper into some of the other areas of his game because I honestly think the key to his unstable security lies just as much within his offensive game as well as his defensive game. I called Brad Stevens a wizard largely in part because of what I think he did for Isaiah's career. Aside from his endless bag of after timeout plays, in-game adjustments, and his ability to get the most out of his players, Brad helped IT to the most efficient season of his career and didn't take any of the credit. Thing is, I'd say he deserved about 40% of it. Now, of course, it is worth noting Isaiah Thomas had to make plays at the end of the day and is by no means a bad player. He's actually a really good one. All I'm acknowledging is that Stevens put Isaiah in the position to thrive and get the easiest looks possible, and because Lou is not doing so, Isaiah will continue to struggle. Last year, Isaiah Thomas ran the pick and roll as a ball handler 34.1% of the time and ranked in the 94th percentile in efficiency, scoring 1.04 points per possession. If you flash to this year, his frequency has jumped to 44.1% because that's what the Cavs naturally run for their scorers, while his efficiency has plummeted to the 34th percentile as he scores 0.78 points per possession. Storylines would suggest this is because Isaiah is easing his way back from an injury that sidelined him for months, but I'm here to make the claim that his struggles will persist beyond his injury return grace period. First, it is worth noting that Isaiah has already participated in 12 games this season, and Cavs fans are losing patience, as well as LeBron. Second, if we just do a comparison of Stevens' Celtics got for Isaiah to IT's performance against the Raptors on January 11th, you will see some glaring differences. On the Celtics, I noticed that it was a collective team effort to get Isaiah's man trailing him. If I had to take a guess, this is because of the length he lacks. So if you get his man in a scrambling position before he even manages to touch the ball, IT can utilize his quickness to wreak havoc on the help. I believe the reason we saw so many cases of Isaiah receiving a pin down out of the corner to come get the ball up top off a handoff was to maximize his strengths and minimize his weaknesses by essentially taking his man out of the play. All of this running and screening would have Isaiah essentially going downhill with his man trailing. Instinctively, if his man continued pursuit, Isaiah would then put his man in jail and get himself a one-on-one with the slower-footed big man. Isaiah also attacked in a lot of forms of early offense, rarely giving the defense a chance to set up. His primary method of attack early in the shot clock were drag screens, which are basically just screens set in semi-transition. The Celtics employed this concept in a number of different ways for him, as there are cases of them running double drags around half court, as well as what I like to call really high horns, all for the purpose of getting his man trailing. If he didn't get those, there are several examples of Isaiah simply pushing it into the front court in hopes of utilizing that speed and quickness to get an easy look at the rim against a scrambling defense. Again, this is not to take away from his great year, as you still have to make these shots, and I don't deny that Isaiah has put an incredible amount of time into his game. He has the uncommon ability to make tough shots when there's nothing else going for an offense, and he should be commended for that. On top of this, I really have to give credit to his ability to use his body to create angles and space in tight situations. Notice how whenever he drives, he gives a small look back, taking a snapshot of where lurking shot blockers may be, so he can employ a savvy way of protecting his shot by either slowing up to get into their body, using the rim to protect the shot, or by giving them a slight bump to knock them off balance. When it comes to maximizing talent, Brad Stevens did an exceptional job for Isaiah Thomas. But let's look at the other side of things. Things we saw in Boston that have and will continue to translate negatively during IT's tenure on the Cavs and potentially other teams. Now, perhaps the biggest hindrance to Isaiah Thomas's future is his lack of length. For those unsure of whether length is a factor in Isaiah turning down or taking shots, just pay attention to how many times he commits to a shot until the very last second. One of his trademarks, if you will, is pulling up only to pass it just before landing. On a synced and well-coached team like the Celtics, it wasn't as much of a problem until it was, as he did experience some slip-ups in this regard, but for the most part, his teammates knew there was potential of this happening and were there to help when he needed it. On a team like the Cavaliers, who play what I like to call AAU basketball, there is no synchronization. Everyone is out there playing around LeBron, and there's little rhythm to what they do. Because they want Isaiah to fill in Kyrie's role, no one really expects him to pass it out because Kyrie rarely did. Isaiah's top job on this team is to get buckets, but as you can see in the Celtics reel, Isaiah had a lot more going for him in the way of coaching so he could get those buckets. Simply put, in an offense that relies on sitting around waiting for guys to make plays and scorers waiting to run a high pick and roll, the defense gets a chance to set itself and prepare for what's coming. Another small factor of IT's game that I would like to point out is that because he is shorter, he has to rely on a rather unorthodox set of moves out of the pick and roll that ultimately shrink passing lanes. Because he is 5'9", Isaiah has a move where he likes to drive and make it seem he has fully committed to the drive until stopping and popping at around the second hash mark. In an average NBA pick and roll, someone would pull up at or near the elbow, which still gives them a chance to pass, as those who have spaced out to other spots on the floor are in the player's direct line of vision. Isaiah has to get so deep that these passing lanes are practically eliminated. This means that Isaiah's pick and roll possessions in the offense are mainly make and miss, and the likelihood of a drive and kick situation being born out of his pick and roll is very small. If he falls into this pattern, it could lead to even further decreased morale of his teammates, and respect for his reputation as a scoring guard could wane as a result. IT's performance in half-court offense directly relates to his ability to hit tough superstar-level shots because making simple plays is what gives you confidence to make the tough ones. If he isn't making the simple plays due to his lack of length, combined with the rather stagnant and lifeless Cavaliers offense, I fear that his struggles will continue beyond his grace period and potentially relegate his status in the NBA.